We are here with Arne Huschenbeth, Magic the Gathering champion. Also, just recently top-aided one of the biggest events of the year, which is super cool. And you're being super humble, but you're a very, very good Magic player. So we get to use your expertise and try to guess Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetypes. We're going to give you 5 different cards from 3 different archetypes, and you're going to tell me which one was never good, which one used to be good but is not good anymore, and which one is good right now in current Yu-Gi-Oh! So you're going to have to take into account power levels. You're going to have to take into account how the deck works as a whole, read all the cards, assess the deck itself, and also take power creep into account too. So because there's that too in Yu-Gi-Oh! So anyway, how much, for those of you who didn't see the Arne Huschenbeth video before, I'll put it right over here for you to watch yourself on the thumbnail. But for the people that didn't watch that video, how much Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience do you have?
All right, thanks for having me again, by the way. I appreciate it. Excited to do this. How much experience did I have? I played as a little child, in like preschool, essentially. That's basically all the experience of Yu-Gi-Oh! Playing I have. And then you just catch something up here and there. You watch a TV show, something like that. So not much.
Yeah, not much, which is kind of what I want. You have a little bit of experience in the last video. Whether you remember any of that, it's that's besides the point. But you brushed up on a little bit of your Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge before this video started, and I remember one card you evaluated was Amano Iwado, so at least you know what that does. But let's go ahead and get started with the first archetype, and you're going to see 5 cards here and try to see how good this one is.
All right.
And as a little bit of a bonus, we're doing an all fusion episode, so you're going to learn the fusion archetypes. 3 of them at least, how to fusion summon and what fusions are, how to do that, how to conduct fusion summons, and 3 different ways that you can fusion summon in Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're focused on fusion summoning today. Let's go ahead and get started.
Gladiator Beast Bestiary. Okay, Winged Beast effect, 1,500, 800. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, target 1 spell / trap card on the field. Destroy that target. At the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked or was attacked, you can shuffle it into the deck, special summon 1 Gladiator Beast from your deck, except Gladiator Beast Bestiary. Okay, this card seems... It does a lot, and it only costs you 4 of these levels, right? Which is fine. Like, as soon as it costs more than that, it is expensive fish, because you have to sacrifice something.
Yep.
As I understand. And there's a lot of text on this card. So it reminds me a little bit of something like, how do you say, like a Knight of Autumn or Reclamation Sage in Magic, because it comes down, destroys something on the field, target 1 spell, 1 trap card, yeah. And then it also, when it attacks, or when it was attacked, it can be shuffled back into the deck and get you more Gladiator Beasts. And maybe Gladiator Beasts are just, I'm going to see more of the deck, I guess. But maybe there's some nice ETBs that you can then put into play again, and I don't know. So yeah, sounds kind of cool.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah, this card is kind of like a Knight of Autumn or Reclamation Sage, like you said, which is pretty cool. Let's go ahead and you're going to learn how this deck fusion summons in a little bit, but let's go ahead and read this card.
A quest, okay, they're all pretty cheap, I guess. When this card is special summoned, Gladiator Beast monster, target 1 Gladiator Beast in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. At the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked or was attacked, you can shuffle it into the deck. Special summon 1 Gladiator Beast from the deck, except Gladiator Beast quest. Let me just double check. Yeah, I mean, they kind of work really well with each other, right? Like, synergize very well, because they special summon each other, and then one returns other Gladiator Beasts. Just really nice synergy. Okay, pretty good.
Okay, let's go to the next card, and then now you are going to... It says Gladiator Beast card, which could be either a monster, a spell, or a trap card. So I'm going to show you this one, and then a quest can bring this back from the graveyard back to the hand.
Okay.
Make sure you read the card.
What does it do? Trap card. Whenever monster's effect is activated, if you control a face-up Gladiator Beast monster, negate the activation and destroy it. Okay, this is sort of like a stifle.
It is a stifle that actually destroys the card as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a bit better than just a stifle.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card seems Also good. And if I would compare it to Magic, I would be like, okay, yeah, just counter a trigger, destroy it. It's sort of like a counter spell. Seems good. Yeah.
And this card would be a spell speed 2 card, like I was telling you before, like an instant speed card, because it's a trap card, but it has that arrow next to it, and that trap card with the arrow. That means it's spell speed 3, so that's basically like a split second.
Oh, okay. So they can't even like back counter, or nothing can interrupt this.
Nothing can interrupt this outside of other counter trap cards. Other trap cards with arrows can interact with this, but that's all that can interact with it.
Okay.
Okay, now let's get to the part where you can actually fusion summon. And you're going to see a couple boss monsters.
Okay. Kind of exciting.
And there's more Gladiator Beast monsters than just Bestiari and a quest, but I just showed you those two to just get you the gist of what's going on with the archetype. Now let's look at this one.
Okay, so this one is a little bit more expensive. And it has fusion. Decent stats, I guess. Okay, so it says Gladiator Beast Bestiari and +1 Gladiator Beast monster. So I assume must first be special summoned from your extra deck by shuffling above cards you control into the deck. So you basically have to sacrifice 2 things to cast this.
You have to shuffle them into the deck.
From the battlefield, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. When this card is special summoned, you can target up to 2 cards on the field. Destroy those targets. Okay. Pretty good. At the end of the battle phase, if this card is battled, you can return it to the extra deck. Special summon 2 Gladiator Beast monsters from your deck, except Gladiator Beast Bestiari. Wait a minute. But I get special summon. What do the others say? Let me just double check if it's the exact same text. 1 Gladiator. Okay. So it's just double the Gladiator Beast. This card seems quite powerful as well. And like to me, this whole archetype looks like you're just chaining these Gladiator Beasts into each other and just going off in a way. Just repeatedly searching them up and bringing them into play and then like getting more effects out of them and so on and so on. So yeah, seems pretty good.
Yeah, they're kind of like what we call in Yu-Gi-Oh! Tagging out. They tag out and tag back in. They're just like, oh, hey, I'm here. Let's shuffle this back in the deck, and now the next one's here. And then when you have another one, it's like, oh, let's put these back in the deck and summon the Gyzarus, right? And then you can destroy 2 things, and then at any point you can like put the Gyzarus back in the extra deck and summon the 2 back from your deck again. And then those will trigger because they were summoned by Gladiator Beast monster, so you'll get the Eternal Witness, but you won't get the Reclamation Sage because you can't summon Bestiari if you use the Gyzarus effect, but you can summon any other ones and use those effects. So it's doing that. All right, now let's look at the last card in this archetype because you kind of understand what's going on here, and it's this one. This is a really cool one.
All right, pretty expensive, 3,000, 2,800. And what does it say? So you need to sacrifice 2 random ones, and you need to sacrifice a Lakari. Is that the Lakari? No, you didn't show me Lakari, I guess.
I did not show you that one.
That one's okay. That's fine. I'll figure this out. Must first be special by shuffling the above cards. Yes. Okay. When a spell trap card is activated, quick effect, you can discard 1 card. Negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. This card must be face up on the field to activate and to resolve this effect. Okay, well, this is just an onboard sort of counterspell. Glenelendra Archmage kinda. Like you just counter, like it doesn't counter monsters, of course, but it does counter one, I would assume, very important aspect of interaction in the game. By just discarding a card. So no, that you can do repeatedly, I would guess. No restriction, no limitations there, which could really mess with your opponent, I would think. This card seems quite strong. It gives me a little bit of like Hullbreaker Horror vibes if you compare it to Magic. It's just messes with the opponent continuously while on play. But yeah, just some activated or triggered ability.
Yeah, so the Glenelendra reference was pretty good, saying that like it can counter something while being in play. Except for with Glenelendra, you can only do it twice. You do it once, it comes back, and then you can do it again. This one just keeps doing it. You don't have to sacrifice itself, and you just get to do this. but the cost is discarding a card in your hand, so it's not like a free or anything. But you get to summon this by just putting 3 Gladiator Beasts from your board back into your deck, and then just putting this in play, and then you have a 3,000 attack dude that can stop your opponent's spell. So that's a pretty big boss monster for this archetype. So overall, what do you think of the Gladiator Beast archetype?
I really like it. I just see synergies. I see various interaction pieces on monsters. So there's a lot of like depth to them, and makes them just like not just like random attackers or what. I really like it. It seems powerful to me. I think if I would compare this to Magic, I really don't know what we're comparing this to. I just know sort of that, as you already mentioned as well, that like Yu-Gi-Oh is a very busted format. So if people are just killing on turn 2 with some insane spell combo, then of course trying to do like these creature shenanigans is not going to be that great. But again, I think this looks good, looks cool, looks solid, looks playable. But yeah, I cannot really rank this until seeing the other decks, I would say.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't expect you to rank this without seeing the other decks. So yeah. Okay. I just wanted your overall thoughts of this archetype, which is pretty cool. If I could relate it to something in Magic, it might be like a birthing pod. Like you get to sack something, bring something else from the deck, and then sack that thing, bring something else from the deck, and then just keep doing that. Except for with these, they just shuffle back into your deck to do it, so you always have access to them.
Yeah, they like have it. Sorry about that. They have it like written on the card as well, right? Because like in birthing pod, you need the birthing pod and the thing, and here you just like need to attack with it, which is kind of
exactly. And if it battles, so if your opponent attacks it too, it also does the thing.
Yeah.
So all right, that's Gladiator Beast. Let's go to the next archetype.
Ancient Gear Frame. Oh my god, I think I remember that. Is this like quite old? This card, probably, right?
Oh, this one's a little. This archetype is pretty old, but there's some newer cards in it as well. But yeah, if you've heard of it, then it's probably the Ancient Gears that you've heard of.
Yeah, I think I remember the Ancient Gear Golem. Maybe it's like a big golem type of thing.
That is one of the cards I'm going to show you. Yeah, Ancient Gear Golem.
So there's some nostalgia back to preschool times.
The thing with Yu-Gi-Oh sometimes is that Yu-Gi-Oh will like update different archetypes over the years and make them like better. It's been done before, and the decks have been like insane. Like there was a dinosaur deck that was played a long time ago, and it was terrible. They came out with new cards, and the deck was like tier 1 for a long time. Yu-Gi-Oh just likes to do that. So it is up to you to figure out like how this falls into it. And there are new cards in this Ancient Gear deck. I am showing you Ancient Gear Golem as like one of the cards, but there's some updated cards in here too, and this is one of the updated cards. It came out more recently than a long time ago, for sure.
Okay. You can discard one card, add one Ancient Gear Golem, or one spell trap that specifically lists the card Ancient Gear Golem in its text. From your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Ancient Gear Frame once per turn. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards until the end of the damage step. If this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon up to 3 Ancient Gear Golem and/or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound from your hand, ignoring the summoning conditions. Okay, because of an opponent's card effect. So it's like a ward ability that is very beneficial for you if you compare it to Magic terms. It's like incredibly good for you if this thing dies on the opponent's hand. So it sort of has like a pseudo hexproof kind of vibe, because your opponent will never ever want to target this thing. And then it shuts off opposing spell trap cards whenever it attacks. It has an activated ability of discarding any card once per turn to fetch you essentially a golem or whatever has golem in the text, which seems pretty egregious because that's probably going to be a lot of cards in this archetype. This card seems bonkers, honestly.
Yeah, and then the ignoring
that's my verdict.
The ignoring the summoning conditions part just means if there is a summoning condition on the card, like Ancient Gear Golem, right? It will just ignore that. You can just summon it, and you don't have to. Like if a card said, "Oh, you have to banish cards from your graveyard to summon it," you just don't have to banish the cards in your graveyard. You just get the card.
Okay. Yeah.
So pretty bonkers for this deck. Okay.
Only upside. Yeah.
Only upside. Yeah. Like find the downside. Like you just can't find it, right? It's like Magic cards these days. They print like 4 mana 6/6s with flying with no downside. All right. Let's go to the next card.
Let's go.
Now you're going to see how Ancient Gears Fusion Summon.
Ancient Gear Fusion Summon. Okay, spell card. Fusion summon one ancient gear, fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. If you use ancient gear golem or ancient gear golem ultimate pound you control as fusion material, you can also use monsters from your deck as material. Okay. So it essentially speeds up, I guess, the summoning of a ancient gear fusion monster, and as I would guess, the fusion monsters are just the best boss type of monsters in the game. So it's probably the most powerful thing this ancient gear deck can assemble, and you can sort of speed it up with this fusion. That would be my assessment of the card.
The
My understanding.
how to fusion summon is usually required using a card called Polymerization, which just says fusion summon a monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. But this one gets the added benefit that if you are summoning an Ancient Gear fusion monster, you can if you use an Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Bound, you can also use materials in your deck, so they'll go from the deck to the graveyard. So this is also kind of like an Entomb that also summons a fusion monster from your extra deck.
Oh, it works as an Entomb and allows it's also card advantage in a way because you don't have to use fusion material from like your battlefield.
Right, you can just use them from your hand.
You can just use it from your
hand.
Okay, you can also fusion from your hand. Okay.
From your hand, or even in this case, if you're doing what's required on this card, from the deck.
Yeah, which that is card advantage, right? Because you just take it from your deck.
100%.
You don't have to discard. You don't have to. Yeah. So
right.
That seems pretty good.
It's pretty powerful. In Yu-Gi-Oh, fusion summoning from the deck is very, very strong because it also acts like an Entomb. There have been cards. There have been fusion spells that have been banned because they fusion summon from the deck. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go to the next card in Ancient Gears, and that is this one that you 100% have already seen.
Yes, exactly.
That
is a card I maybe have owned this. Maybe I can like I don't know.
You go find one?
No, no. I think it's too long ago. I think I. Anyways, what does it do? Yeah, it costs a lot. 3,000. Look at this artwork. Just looks powerful. Cannot be special summoned. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate any spell trap cards until the end of the damage step. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. I don't know what that means. Is that like first strike?
It's trample.
What is this? Oh, trample. Okay, cool. Well, that's a nice ability to have on a 3,000.
And also, just something to note about this: the gear frame that you read first will be able to summon this card because it says ignoring the summoning conditions, even though this card says can't be special summoned.
Yeah, so this thing is kind of tricky to get onto the battlefield from, like, in normal ways.
Correct.
Right? You sort of have to cheat it.
Correct.
Okay.
And usually you can't cheat this because it says it can't be special summoned. Back in the day, you would have to normal summon this, but there are ways to special summon this card in this archetype, and you'll see. Ancient Gear Frame can summon it, and then there's other cards as well. Let's go ahead and go to the next card. You've seen this card alluded to in some of the cards already, but let's go ahead and read what the card actually does.
Okay, that's the ultimate pound Ancient Gear Golem, so it's probably like the upgraded version. It's a newer card, right?
Newer than Ancient Gear Golem, yes.
Yeah. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflicts. Okay, so trample up to twice per turn. When this attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can discard one machine monster. This card can attack again in a row. Okay. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one polymerization from your deck to your hand. And if you do, add one other Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, are you kidding me? So the first ability basically says that you can, whenever you kill something, it just attacks again, and you can do that twice.
Yep.
Well, you have to discard a machine monster, but that's a fine price to pay for just destroying your opponent's board position. And then you get it when it dies, so you can just like suicide it sometimes too, but it doesn't even matter if it's battle or card. You get a card into your hand and a monster from your graveyard into your hand. This card seems pretty good.
Also notably, doesn't say opponent's card effect, right? You can destroy this with your own card and get the effect if you really need to.
Oh, yeah. You can just sacrifice it in some way. That doesn't mean if you like sacrifice it into a summoning, do you also get the effect then?
No. If you unlike in Magic, when you sacrifice something, it's considered dying, being destroyed. In Magic, it is. Yeah. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, if you sacrifice something like tribute summoning and tribute it from an effect, it does not count as being destroyed. It has to specifically destroy.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's a lot of ways to put cards in the graveyard in Yu-Gi-Oh, whether it's tributing, sending, things like that. That will not trigger this. It's only destroy.
Yeah. It says card effect. That's why I was thinking maybe because it's a card effect maybe in the rules that tribute summoning is a card effect, but right. I guess not.
A card in Yu-Gi-Oh that would trigger from tributing and sending is a card that says leaves the field by an opponent's card effect or by a card effect. Then it would work. But this specifically saying destroyed will not work with tributing and sending. Okay. But I will say the majority of things in Yu-Gi-Oh destroy. It's a minority of cards that send and tribute. Okay. Let's go ahead and go on to the next card, and you're going to see a couple fusion monsters now. Like you're like, okay, you do this thing with Gear Golem Ultimate Pound. You have the thing with you have the Ancient Gear fusion. Okay, fine. What are we fusioning into, right? And this is what we're going to look at now. For the 5th card, you're going to have a bonus card in here as well. This is the 6th card archetype because I want to show you 2 fusions. This is the first fusion I'm going to.
Okay, what the heck is this thing? Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. Okay, 3,000, that's big. It says 3 Ancient Gear monsters. I don't know what that line of text means.
That is the requirement to fusion summon this. If you use Polymerization, you have to use 3 monsters. And if you use Ancient Gear Fusion, you can use 3 monsters from your deck if one of them is Ancient Gear Golem or Ultimate Pound.
I see. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards until the end of the damage step. So that's what all these guys are doing, I guess. If this card was fusion summoned using 2 or more Ancient Gear Golem and/or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound as material, it can attack up to that many times during each battle phase. Okay. If this face-up fusion summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem from your extra deck. Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. So you're telling me there's another higher form of Ancient Gear Golem.
That is the next card I'm going to show you. The Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem.
I was hoping that. All right, let's show it.
Yep, that's the bonus
this card seems nuts, of course. Yeah, this card is great.
All right, here's Ultimate.
Oh, all right. Damn. Look at you. You've grown. Ancient Gear Golem plus 2 Ancient Gear monsters. Okay. Must be fusion summoned. Yes. If this card attacks a defense position, inflict trample, piercing battle damage. If this card attacks, your opponent can activate. We know that. If this card is destroyed, you can target 1 Ancient Gear Golem in your graveyard, special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. So it essentially reanimates on dying if this card is destroyed. So only if it is destroyed.
Right. But the last card
it doesn't say. Yeah.
Does say.
Sorry.
The last card does say removed from the field. It says leaves the field, so it will work with tributing and sending and everything. This is only destroying.
Yeah. Okay. But it doesn't say that it just has to be destroyed in battle. It also goes around like spells and traps that would destroy it.
Or monster effects.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty big. 4,400 is pretty big. Let me just real quick. The Megaton Golem. So the Megaton Golem leaves the field. Okay, so yeah, and then you can get that thing right into play. And it's basically a chain. You go down the chain. The Megaton is Big Daddy, dies, brings the Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. That one dies, brings the Ancient Gear Golem. So you don't run out of huge, fatty monsters, essentially. You just really tough to sort of play fair against these things when they just, I don't know, just thinking in Magic terms. Like, they have a big Eldrazi, you kill it, another big Eldrazi comes out of it, you kill that, another big Eldrazi comes out of it. I'm sure there's ways to go around these things, but if most of the interaction is about destroying and like, all that type of stuff, this seems pretty powerful. And also, it shuts off spell and trap cards like all of these do during the damage step. So that makes just attacking so dangerous from these things, I would guess. Makes them, and they have a lot of power. They have this trample damage, so they kill very quickly, I would guess. So these just seem like, pretty dangerous things.
Yeah, these kill very quickly. And when I say quickly, I mean like, okay, 3,000 attack is like the cutoff for a powerful monster, like having a good amount of attack points. 3,000. The last card we went over is 3,300, so that will attack like over almost anything your opponent's going to have in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. 4,400 is like out of this world. Like that amount of attack is truly absurd. There are monsters like there's a Tenpai archetype that's a dragon archetype that can get a monster bigger than this, but this is like one of the highest you can get. When you look at the ancient Gear Golem archetype, how do you think it stacks up with Gladiator Beasts?
Okay. So the Gladiator Beasts, they're all about, they can counter spell trap cards with that big Heraklinos. For example, which that one doesn't really deal with like big monsters from the golem. So if I had to match them up against each other, I feel like the golems are gonna just munch over them. That would be my guess right now.
Okay, if that's your guess, that's all we can take now. We have one more archetype to go over, so let's just take that into account, and then let's go over to the last archetype, and then you'll put all three together and see how they stack up against each other.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, the last fusion deck you're going to go over is one that's going to start with this card.
Aluba, the Jester of Despia. 0 defense. Okay, fairy. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 branded spell trap from your deck to your hand. If a face-up fusion monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls. Special summon this card, and if you do, negate the targeted monster's effects until the end of this turn. You can only use 1 Aluba, the Jester of Despia effect per turn, and only once that turn. How does a thing have 0 defense? I mean, it just dies instantly.
If it is in defense position, it can die from anything that has 50 attack or higher. Like 50 is like the lowest bar of like attack. Like basically it's 100, but anyway, anything over 0 is going to kill this. If this is in defense position, if this is in attack position, you don't even register the defense at all. You just go attack to attack.
Okay.
It's only if this card's in defense position.
I see. Okay, so it's aggressive. It already has card advantage right away built in. Like you just add a branded spell trap from your deck to your hand. That's amazing. And it has all these other effects, and it's just a normal summon.
Yep.
It seems pretty good to me. You can target 1 effect monster. What is an effect monster?
A monster that's not a normal monster. So it says effect, fairy / effect. If it was a normal monster, it would not have an effect at all. It would be like a vanilla, like a grizzly bear.
Oh, okay. Let me just check. Okay, all these guys have effects. So a lot of the best creatures in the game or monsters have effects, I guess.
Yeah, nobody plays grizzly bears unless they like really have to in their deck.
Okay, so this hits like everything. And then you can just negate the target's monster's effect. And it's just a special... It's a normal summon. It has card advantage. It's aggressive. And it gives you interaction from your graveyard if a face-up fusion monster you control. So it's good with like big fusion. Okay. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm just like a little overwhelmed by the amount of text on the card.
Right.
But yeah, it seems useful.
All right, let's go to the next card. And since this one adds a branded spell or trap from deck to hand, I'm going to take this opportunity to show you the branded spell or trap that you usually have with this card. And this is also going to show you the way that this deck fusion summons.
Branded fusion. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material from your extra deck. using 2 monsters from your hand, deck, or field as fusion material. Okay, so this can also summon from your deck, which we established is pretty good. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters. Turn you activate this card. You can only activate 1 branded fusion per turn. So it basically restricts itself to doing this once per turn. That usually is the sign of a dangerous effect, because if you if it wouldn't have that extra line of text, it might have caused trouble. It needs that limitation to be restrained, otherwise it's too powerful. Yeah, so the Fallen of a Boss is a little weird. I don't know that yet, whatever that is.
Fallen of Abaz is a card that you would usually play in this deck. It's not very relevant. It's not a very good card, but like you play it because you kind of have to. Because cards in your deck are kind of forced to mention Fallen of Abaz, and Fallen of Abaz is just like a kind of a puzzle piece in this deck, but it's not super relevant. It can be relevant, but it's not relevant to the discussion we're having today. It's just a card you play in your deck because you kind of have to, because you're playing branded.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this seems useful.
Okay. Now, I want to show you one of the other kind of glue cards in this deck as well, and then we'll get you to the fusion monsters that makes this deck what it is.
If this card is sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, you can add 1 Despia monster from your deck to your hand, except Despian Tragedy. Okay. So just similar to the Gladiator Beast that go to the graveyard and like bring 1 into your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard and then target 1 branded spell trap in your graveyard, set it to your field. You can only use 1 Despian Tragedy effect per turn and only once that turn. Okay. Wow. Well, this is clearly, I mean, you just want to destroy or kill these things, I guess, and then it just generates card advantage. It's sort of like a creature. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, a lot of value packed into this little thing.
Right, and this card doesn't say destroyed. It says if this card is sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect. So if you activate Branded Fusion and you send this card from your deck to the graveyard, it will trigger the effect to add a Despia monster from deck to hand, except for Despian Tragedy.
Yeah, no, I can this is just very synergistic with the whole summoning stuff, and just I can see that you go off with a card like this and sort of generate card advantage, and you just like go off, right? Like this seems like it could be broken, or be part of something broken.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the I would say just cogs in the machine, basically. For lack of better terms. Also, on the next turn, since you can only use one effect per turn and one effect, like you only use one effect per turn and only once that turn. You have to use the other effect on the next turn or whenever you want on a following turn to banish it to set a branded spell or trap from your graveyard to the board. But you just used a branded fusion, so you can just set the branded fusion that you already used on the following turn. So you kind of like always have access to branded fusion.
Yeah. No, this seems very good.
Let's go ahead and go to the next card, and that is going to wrap things together. There's 2 more cards to look at, and they're both fusion monsters. So let me see how you evaluate this fusion monster in the Despia archetype.
Mirror Blade, the Ice Blade Dragon. Fallen of a Boss, +1 fusion. Synchro X Link monster. Okay, it mentions the Fallen of a Boss, so that's good for the branded fusion. Okay, what does it say? You can only control 1 of them, so they're legendary. Once per turn, quick effect. You can send one fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and mentions Fallen of a Boss. If this fusion summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponents control during the end phase of this turn. That's a pretty powerful dying effect in a way, or leaves the field because of an opponent's card. Yeah, so you don't want to mess with this.
Yes, it is saying that you can send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard to banish, exile a card on the field, and then you can't use that on the next turn. But since it's a quick effect, you can use it on like every other turn, basically, including your opponent's.
So the cost for banishing is just exiling, I guess. The cost of that is just that you have to exile a card from your deck.
You have to send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard.
Well, that seems relatively free, I would say. Like, how many fusion monsters are you going to have? I guess they're valuable in your extra deck, but hey, at a moment's notice, if you're in trouble, if you're facing off against like some insane bomb monster you have to get rid of, just, do it, kill it, banish it.
Yep. And remember what I said about the power of cards, the attack power of cards? 3,000 is basically like the cutoff for a card having high attack power, basically. So 3,000 is high. It can attack over most things.
Yeah, good stats. Okay. And a really, really nice defensive ability in a way that, opponent doesn't want to destroy this thing.
Yeah, if they get rid of this in any way, not even just destroying it, sending, tributing, whatever, at the end of the turn, on the start of the end phase, their board is going to be destroyed.
Pretty good.
Okay, let's go over to the last card and keep that send an extra deck monster to the graveyard to banish something in mind when you read this one.
Albion the Branded Dragon. Okay, also mentions Fallen of a Boss. Okay, a little lower stats, but still pretty high. If this card is fusion summoned, you can fusion summon one level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck, except Albion the Branded Dragon, by banishing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add it to your hand or set one branded spell trap directly from your deck. You can only use each effect of Albion the Branded Dragon once per turn. Okay. So if you fusion summon this, you can also summon another level 8 fusion monster?
Correct.
That is potentially pretty powerful. You can sort of like create more board presence with one card. Sort of chain them into each other, go off a little bit. Maybe go for one turn kill. Is there summoning sickness in Yu-Gi-Oh? No, you just like kill one in one swoop. Boom, boom, boom. And yeah, then you just put it into your graveyard with the previous monster, and you get an effect in the end phase where you can generate more value, put it back into your hand. You can add to your hand one set. Wait, no. So every single turn, you can just add a branded spell trap from your deck to your hand, as long as it's in the graveyard. Am I getting this right?
No, it's only if it was sent there this turn.
Oh, okay. So only once.
Yes.
So you get a free spell. So in conjunction with the Mirror Blade or Mirror Jade, you basically just put this into your graveyard, get a free spell, so you don't even really pay for anything. You banish an opposing monster by putting this into your graveyard, and you get an extra card, which just seems like incredibly powerful. Okay, that really buffs the Mirror Jade and makes it even better.
And there is other spells and trap cards in this deck that you would play. One of them lets you fusion summon on your opponent's turn, so you can use this to set what's called Branded in Red. And that is a quick play, like spell speed 2, instant speed fusion spell that lets you banish materials to summon another fusion monster. And you can do that on your opponent's turn. Okay,
so you just...
Yeah, it just keeps on kind of like chaining fusions. There's a lot of Branded and Despia fusions. I'm just showing you these two.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
okay.
Seems good.
So we've seen all 3 archetypes, Arne. Okay. We went over the Gladiator Beasts, and you learn how to fusion summon this archetype by tagging out your little or smaller Gladiator Beast into bigger Gladiator Beasts to destroy stuff or add stuff to your hand, or maybe discard a card and prevent your opponent from activating their spell cards, which is very important when your opponent's trying to fusion summon using their branded fusion or something. Maybe Heraclinos can negate that card. We also looked over Ancient Gears with Ancient Gear Frame, Ancient Gear Fusion. We learned that you can do a broken thing by sending fusion materials from your deck to the graveyard. We learned your little nostalgia card, Ancient Gear Golem, can be summoned using their fusion monsters from Megaton Golem and Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, and kind of chain into each other once you destroy them, and they have huge amount of attack power. And then we went over the Despia archetype with random fusion that also lets you fusion summon by using cards in your deck. Despian Tragedy to gain card advantage. We have the Aluber to add random fusion to your hand in the first place. And then we have Mirror Jade that can exile things your opponent controls, and sending Albion to kind of keep the fusion chain going. So after going over all three of these archetypes, you have one answer to give me, and that is which one was never good, which one used to be good but is not anymore, and which one is good right now.
Well, if I would have to rank them by power level, I would think that the last archetype we had is the most powerful, because it just has these combo chains, and the Mirror Jade just seems absolutely bonkers. And even the normal summon ones seem very good because they generate card advantage, replace themselves, or do stuff from the graveyard. So there's like a lot of synergies going on with the fusioning, with the summoning, using them as fusion material. So I think the fairy branded archetype is the best. I think the second best is the Gear Golem stuff. Just super powerful, super strong monsters that you summon onto the battlefield via Ancient Gear Fusion. They're resilient, they're tough to deal with, very, very powerful stuff. And then I think the Gladiator Beast, even though I found them to be sort of, sweet and synergistic and also kind of cool, they return each other, they do this and that. They seem not as powerful or as proactively powerful, I guess. Like the boss monsters read well, like they read powerful, and probably people thought they would. I mean, I shouldn't make too many assumptions. Maybe if I'm completely wrong here. So yeah, no, that would be my guess. So I'm gonna put the Gladiator Beasts at the weakest. I'm just not that convinced that these boss monsters are that great. At least not that great compared to the other two archetypes. Yeah, Gladiator Beast, never good. Ancient Gear Golem used to be good. And I mean, maybe it's the other one. I mean, okay, I'm gonna. No, okay, I'm gonna stick to the branded. I'm gonna say the branded is the one that's currently good, but used to be good, currently good. Like that could really be. Anyways, I'm gonna say it's currently good, but it could also be Gear Golems. Like that could really be interchanged, I guess. So yeah, branded, currently good. Gear Golem used to be good, and Gladiator Beast never been good. How wrong am I?
You're mostly right. You're mostly right. I would say that the new Ancient Gear cards came out after the Gladiator Beast's deck was good, and a lot of the Gladiator Beast cards are like pretty good and probably better than the Gladiator Beasts were when they were good. So I'm going to say like you kind of got it right, but because if you matched up early Gladiator Beasts with right now Ancient Gears would be better than Gladiator Beasts. So with your analysis, you got it 100% right. However,
yeah,
there's no way of you knowing this, and it's pretty unfair, but Gladiator Beasts used to be the best deck in the format long time ago. And that's the deck that used to be good, but is no longer good. Ancient Gears have never been good. They weren't good when they were the older cards, and then when they were the newer cards, when they added the newer cards, it's still not good enough as decks that came out during the time when the newer cards came out. So it still wasn't even that good. And the reason for it is, yes, they have really high power. Yes, when you attack, they can't use their things. Yes, they have piercing and 4,400 attack and things. And yes, after you kill them, they bring out more Ancient Gears. The problem is, and let me see if you solve the problem, is that there's no interaction. Like, you just cannot mess with your opponent's game plan. With Gladiator Beast, you can, and with the Despia archetype, you can. With Mirror Jade exiling your opponent's things, where you don't see that at all with Ancient Gears, right? You just can't. It says like basically your opponent can't use their stuff, but if your opponent wanted to use their spells and traps, they'll just use it before you declare an attack.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really stop your opponent from doing anything. It's basically saying, okay, you go first, I'll go second, and then just try to kill you through your interaction, and it can't stop your opponent from doing anything. So that's kind of the huge downfall of Ancient Gears. Now,
I see. Yeah,
because it doesn't have interaction for your opponent. Now, Branded is really good. At one point, it was the best deck in the format. Right now, it's not the best deck in the format, but it's still very good. It also has a kind of a lock in the deck that I didn't show you because it required way too many cards, and it didn't actually add anything to you evaluating Branded anyway. There's a card called Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, and it is a card that I'm going to show right over here. And it is a card that says if you can't special summon monsters, and this deck has a way of summoning that monster on your opponent's field. So that they can't special summon any monsters, and they have to win the game through having that on their board, and there's no way for them to like stop that effect, since it is a lingering effect that lasts the whole turn, which is like super oppressive, and that's why Despia has like maintained being a really good deck over the past like year or two that it's actually been a deck. But in general, even if you were not playing the Gimmick Puppet lock, this deck would be pretty good. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also I didn't mention this, but you also mentioned this as well in the Branded deck, that it does a really, really good job of just keep recycling the resources over and over again, adding the cards to hand, bringing cards back from the graveyard, setting things from the graveyard, setting things from your deck, putting the fusions back in your graveyard, shuffling the fusions back in your extra deck to do it again. It just like kind of is a continual way to keep on using your cards. It's kind of like when you're playing an Eternal Witness deck with Ephemerate, you just like kind of never run out of resources. This is kind of like what it's doing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I got that at least.
Yeah, you got that right. So overall, I think you just like got everything right. There's no way of you knowing that the Gladiator Beast was the best deck in the format at one point based on the power level of the cards at that time, because it was a long time ago. And the Ancient Gear cards were always worse than the deck that was good in that time. And the Gladiator Beast cards right back then were worse than what Ancient Gears are today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, like format moves on, power creep, right, and new additions to the deck, and yeah, no, it makes sense. Like everything you're saying makes sense. Poor Ancient Gear Golems just never can catch a break, even though they're so cool.
I know. Just give them interaction. Let them deal with your opponent's stuff.
Exactly. All right.
Okay.
Yu-Gi-Oh developers, you heard it here first.
You heard it. Okay, well, I'm going to say you got everything right, because your analysis was spot on about all of the cards, how the archetypes are supposed to work and everything. What did you think about the archetype videos and actually learning how Yu-Gi-Oh decks function rather than doing the just 5 cards, evaluate these at face value like you did last time?
Pretty cool. It's a lot more complicated for sure.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You have to take more things into account. But you actually learn a lot about Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I learned a lot about the game right now. Every deck has this aspect of like, if you compare it to Magic terms for the Magic viewers, is like aristocrat style. You like sacrifice things to produce things. It's like every deck is just a sacrifice shenanigans type of situation, and then like some summon this, some summon that, some summon this, and like what's the most powerful fusion you can accomplish, or like so yeah, no, right. Pretty cool.
And think about it, this is just fusion decks. There are pendulums, links, there are synchros, and there are all different kinds of cards that you can summon out of your extra deck that are completely different decks. These are just fusion ones, so you can imagine being in a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh atmosphere right now and having to take all those into account, and maybe your opponent's playing any one of those, so you kind of have to know what your opponent's doing to be able to stop what they're doing, and it becomes really complicated.
Okay, wow, okay, yeah, I see.
Yeah, and this is just fusions, let alone anything else, so this is a small piece of the puzzle of Yu-Gi-Oh. Yep.
Sounds like a big game.
Yeah, a very big game. And since it's a non-rotating format, and it's like Legacy, like every deck that has ever existed is in Yu-Gi-Oh. So you kind of have to, it is very mind-boggling the amount of information and knowledge there is to know in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Preparing for tournaments. You can play Gladiator Beasts right now. You just won't have a good time.
Sure.
You'll get destroyed. You can have fun with your Gladiator Beast cards. Will do the same thing as they did 15 years ago, but you're not gonna have a good time. Okay. Thank you once again, Arne Huschenbeth, for coming onto the show. It was awesome seeing you learn some Yu-Gi-Oh. Your accomplishments in Magic the Gathering just keep on growing over like next year we're gonna do another video, right, and you're gonna have another top 8, so it's gonna be really cool. But anyway, thank you for joining the show. If you would like to be on the show yourself, you can join the Patreon link is down in the description below. Also, you can get 7% off of anything in the Prodigy Games store, prodigygames.com, by using code JAME7 at checkout, JAME7. Thank you all for hanging out with us, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, peace.